Welcome back. Old-fashioned perimeter protection is out and zero trust style protection is in for federal agencies, according to security professionals across government. But the definition of perimeter protection may be open to change. Dan Goslee is head of federal at Verkata. Dan, welcome. It's great to have you on the program.
Likewise.
You wrote recently about this term virtual perimeter. What does that mean, especially to security professionals in government?
Yeah, it means a lot of different things, right? Because we deal with military bases that are very expansive. We deal with national parks that are very expansive. We deal with schools. And so it really depends. But the essence of what we're getting at Verkata is how do we protect perimeters so we can extend that security, aperture further out and protect people and assets at the end of the day. And that's what we're doing.
That's the essence of what military organizations talk about and increasingly civilian agencies talk about securing the edge. Is that a fair observation on my part?
What people are looking for now is having AI at the edge, right? Typical security cameras don't give you the AI that you'd want. So when you put a device out in the field or you put it far away, you just don't have the bandwidth to have guards everywhere. So how do you leverage technology to get those threats, near-term threats, to a device so you can be notified on your phone that, hey, there's someone out there in the field? We talked a little bit about some examples, you and I, prior around some of these really historic events. Like we talked about the Artemis launch and how do you protect perimeters that are very large but very important, right? Those assets and the critical infrastructure is really important to guard against any bad actors, and you can't fly drones. And so what do you do? And so what we've done is we've put our AI devices out at the edge, whether it's along a beach line or around the fence line or it's out in open fields. And then with the use of AI, you can build digital parameters, right? Digital zones. And that way, if you walked into those zones at 2 in the morning, I could be notified that, hey, someone's there. In a traditional sense, you can't afford to run cabling and video cameras and you don't have enough guards. So what do you do? And
I imagine another challenge is not just the size of those fields, but the fluidity of them too, changing all the time.
That's correct. In fact, we've been asked to help the military recently, and we leaned in. It was a little bit of a heavy effort, but we leaned in and helped 2 major air shows, 500,000 people. And what we found was, because we are a cloud-based product, we're able to share the information with local law enforcement. And so we did the one here at Andrews Air Force Base. We did the one at Miramar. 400,000 people at Miramar on a weekend, and we tracked people coming in. And again, we're not tracing and tracking individuals, but we're able to notify people if there's a suspicious person. And San Diego Police Department was there, and we're able to integrate all these systems into one. And I won't name which one, but there was some foreign actors doing some suspicious behavior around suspicious assets of the military, and they were able to hone in quickly and get someone there, local law enforcement, to that site and be able to find out what's going on. So that's the kind of stuff that we could do using AI.
What are the major issues involved in that data flow? Local law enforcement, I imagine in some cases there's state, provincial, tribal law enforcement, federal law enforcement, military, a lot of information flow in a lot of different directions, I imagine.
Yeah, they do. In traditional sense, you have different systems, right? They're all stovepiped. Well, when you move to the cloud, you mentioned zero trust. When you move to the cloud, you can start to share that data, whether it's on your phone, whether it's a computer in a cruiser, whether it's on a mobile, like a mobile command center. And so we're able to set those up very quickly because we are cloud native and we don't have to have servers and NVRs and all these heavy architecture. So literally, you take a device, you connect it to Starlink, or you connect it to any sort of communication. We also have a secure encrypted stuff that we work with military, but within minutes we can have information up. So we did a flyaway kit, for example. You can drop it out of a plane, and let's say you and I are in the middle of overseas somewhere and we need to protect the perimeter. We can set that up in 20 minutes. And now back here, at the Pentagon or wherever else, you can control and see what's going on at the edge. And if someone enters our digital zone at 3 in the morning, we now have eyes on. And that's the kind of stuff we can do very quickly.
We have less than a minute left. What kind of infrastructure is usually lacking when you go into organizations and talk to them about solutions like this?
Unfortunately, what we've seen, and I've been here 3 years now, and what I've seen is that a lot of the existing systems are down. Maintenance costs are very expensive and people can't maintain those, and so they're kind of stuck. And so what they do is they come to us and say, hey, look, what is the total cost of ownership of modernizing? And a lot of times pretty heavy. So what we've seen is until the cloud came to be, it was very difficult to modernize, and that's been a major changing factor for a lot of these agencies. Dan,
it's great to have you on the program again.
Thanks, likewise.
Thanks for joining me today. You can read more about cybersecurity on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. Up next, a collaboration across government to stop pig butchers. FedGov Today continues in just a moment.